The world's preeminent business growth expert, Jay Abraham.
Jay is not you.
Jay showing you how to find more money. He's making it rain.
This is a man that you cannot afford to be without.
1-800-88-12345. This is the ultimate entrepreneur with Jay Abraham.
Hi, it's Paul Durante. Today's show, 2 Shark Tank Sharks. Billionaire Marc Cuban and Jay's good friend, founder of FUBU, Damon John.
People don't know that, since you're my mentor, all I do is listen to what you say and I repeat it so I sound smarter. So I appreciate everything as well.
Here's Marc.
To me, if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, and the key to even being an entrepreneur is that whatever business idea you want to follow, you have to know more about that industry, more about that business, and be willing to work harder than anybody else in the world. And if you're willing to make that commitment, then great things can happen. And if you're not, then somebody like me is going to come along and kick your ass.
Marc Cuban and Damon John. To be on this show, 1-800-88-12345. That's the ultimate entrepreneur hotline by dial 800. Get more calls, more sales, more response with a custom memorable number just like ours. Dial800.com. Amazing customer service. Marc Cuban is coming up. Now, Jay and Damon.
We want to talk to you because you are not just a shark, but you're a consummate entrepreneur. Name of the show is The Ultimate Entrepreneur. I want to ask you a straightforward question. Damon, what do you think makes a great entrepreneur from all the people you've seen, large, small, successful in other ways?
Somebody who's doing something they love, somebody who does not take no for an answer, somebody who is, a problem solver. They go back to the drawing board and they solve the problem, and somebody who is a visionary.
How do you think somebody who's not exactly that profile becomes one? How do they reconstruct their thinking, shift their paradigm?
Well, I think that, somebody who is not that way needs to understand that we were all born with that form of thinking. And I think that, a lot of times I share with people the fact that, when we were born and when we were crawling and we walked and we fell, nobody said, do not ever walk again. Or when we started to speak and we mumbled, they said, don't ever try that again. But us as creatures and born thinkers of being an entrepreneur, everybody has told us when we had a dream or an aspiration, don't think like that. You're going to embarrass me, myself. It can't happen. You'll fail. And I think that once they take those blinders off and understand that they are totally in power of their destiny, and if they just really be decisive about the direction they want to go and have a goal and keep they're willing to keep trying at it. I think that once they take those blinders off and know that they can do it, because Jay, you, myself, and many others, there's no difference in us than anybody else. When they take those blinders off, they can start progressing in that direction.
I had a resiliency that I can remember as you say this, and I think knowing your background, you did too, but will you share, because everyone sees you sitting on the panel looking pretty darn dapper and, very, very understated, but very confident. Can you give about a 3-minute background on you? Because I think people will appreciate that the advice comes from having been there, done that.
Yeah, well, my 3-minute background is I was raised in Hollis, Queens, and it was a suburb of Manhattan. And from 6 years old, I always wanted to do something, so I started selling pencils then. And when I was 10 years old, I was, shoveling snow in the winter and raking leaves in the fall. And I always was some kind of entrepreneur. My parents got divorced at about 12. I became the man of the house at 12 years old. I have not stopped working since that day. I've tried every odd job as well as working for people. I did not like working for people because I didn't want to be the victim of what was going on in their life, and they had a control over my destiny. I fell in love with this world and this music called hip-hop, so that was my first real love. In falling in love with that, I love the fashion aspect of it, and I started to just make clothes. Now, what I did was I created FUBU, which is a brand for us, by us. It was for people of this musical genre, by people of this musical genre. And for 3 years, I took 10 T-shirts, and I put them on rappers in videos, and I would take the same T-shirts back. For 3 years, I ended up putting those 10 T-shirts on about 40 videos. What happened at that time was I was still working at Red Lobster, and I was known as this huge fashion company called FUBU that was on every single music artist.
That's funny.
And what happened was after that, I started to try to find ways to fund myself. I failed a million times. I got turned down by 27 banks. There was no SBLA loan for me. Actually, I only went to 20 banks. The other 7 heard that I was around shopping a deal. They said, just don't come in. We don't have any toasters. Don't come in already, right? So that's turned down by 27 banks. I then got a second mortgage on my home that I shared with my mother. I took all the furniture out of there because we were being conservative about our money. We didn't want to waste a dime on anything, so I didn't want to cart it away. I burned it all in my backyard. I moved sewing machines into my home. And for 3 years, my 3 friends and I, with a bunch of seamstresses, were making clothes in my house.
That was your production facility.
That was my production facility. And, you have to think about it like this. I wasn't smart enough. I didn't understand financing. I was bankrolling raw goods coming in, and bankrolling the money going out and paying the staff, and bankrolling also the invoices. So I was about 3 months away from losing not only my business, but my home, my nest egg.
That's scary.
And
what happened?
It's scary. It was a gamble. And unfortunately, a lot of entrepreneurs only go with their heart, and that's what I was doing at one time when they need a little bit more of a structure and an understanding of maybe financing and a little more of an education to couple with that desire and that business strategy. But I didn't do that. And, I learned from that, and I failed way more than I've succeeded. And then after that, I went ahead and I got a great distribution deal with Samsung America. That was around 97. Now, up until that time, I closed my brand 4 times.
Wow.
But I was doing something I loved so much that to see somebody, wear my clothes, walk down the street, the feeling that they think that enhances their life by wearing my product, it was such a joy and such a high that I would have made FUBU products for the rest of my life for free.
Got it.
And then, the Samsung thing happened, and we took off, and we took that same street mentality, and for the next 15 years, we would integrate that into the world of fashion and lifestyle and marketing and branding.
And just so people know, that integration turned out to be $1 billion on 4 continents, so it was pretty impactful. So in the process, you learned a lot about business, you learned a lot about partnering, you learned a lot about collaboration, you learned a lot about branding, selling. Can you give us a quick, short course on what you've learned that you think maybe some of the entrepreneurs out there could benefit from doing better?
Well, I learned several things, and I'm starting to sound like that old granddad who just tells you stuff and you say he doesn't know what he's talking about. But I've learned that, you don't enter anybody's business or, area of specialty without either partnering up strategically or hiring somebody that's been through it for 20 years on their own. One of the biggest mistakes we ever made was because FUBU made clothing. We thought we knew a lifestyle, so we decided we're going to make records tomorrow. Not a problem. Well, you know what? $6 million later in the hole, we realized that, the record industry, we should have hired somebody who knew the record industry. To sum that up, you go with people who have strengths and they're strategically placed. And you know that you can work with them and they can give you that 20 years of experience or the 20 years of failures they've had so you can learn from that. I think another thing is that money is not always what's going to solve your problem. You see, a lot of entrepreneurs want to go out there and they want to say, you know what, I'm going to take a $100,000 loan and I'm going to put out this big ad in this commercial and sell all over the country. Well, you're going to impress me just as much if you have 10 pieces of something you created, you go to the mall and you sell that in 1 hour. You're going to show that this sale is something that I can activate, and now I can partner up with you and put that in every single mall all around the world and sell 10 pieces an hour. You don't need to have an example of $100,000 to spend. So money is always something that you don't necessarily need to vet your product or your process.
Interesting.
And I'm sorry, Jay?
I said that's interesting. A great insight about the leverage people have that they never realize exists.
Yeah, as your guy, Anthony Robbins, was saying, money's just going to pull you up to your problems in a limousine. That's it. You're going to go up to the you're going to go up to the bankruptcy attorney. You're in a nice new car that you spent your money on. But those are some of the things that I've really learned, and how you have to departmentalize and strategically place who is in charge of what's in your corporation and or your business, because everybody needs to know their role, and you delegate the information. As a CEO or somebody running a business, you can drown an opportunity, so you need to basically have a lot of strategic antennas around you or tentacles, for lack of a better word, is to go out there and execute your program effectively.
Damon is a foremost authority on branding. Up next, his tips on branding. I'm Paul Durante. Jay's the world's preeminent business growth expert. His fee, $50,000 a day. But you can join the Abraham Mastermind Alliance free. It's a dynamic organization of like-minded entrepreneurs, business owners, professionals from all over the world. They have a passionate commitment to building a business that's preeminent and highly profitable. The Abraham Mastermind Alliance, totally free for fans of this show. Free downloads, free resources. All the info's at abraham.com or call 1-800-88-12345.
Welcome to Play It, a new podcast network featuring radio and TV personalities talking business, sports, tech, entertainment, and more. Play it at play.it.
Money is coming to me. Money is coming to me.
Have a lot of fun and make a lot of money. This is the Ultimate Entrepreneur with Jay Abraham.
Now, I want to get into Shark Tank, but before I do that, I got to ask you a couple questions because you are great in branding. People pay you a fortune to guide them in branding. They give you interest in their business, so you'll put your branding mastery into it. Your whole success is really based on that. Give us a little short course primer on branding, because I think most entrepreneurs don't have any decisive image, no real voice, no distinction. And I think that's very problematic.
I think that a lot of entrepreneurs don't understand that, and especially in the day and age of social media where everything is we have clarity in everything, and you can't just go out and make it and they will come, or say something that, maybe somebody else will contradict what you're saying and put up on Twitter or someplace else a link that shows that what you're saying is false. So first of all, you need to be transparent about the brand. Second of all, who is your brand? Who do you resonate with? Your brand is a lot of times yourself. We talk about Donald Trump all we want, but, at the end of the day, there's a million real estate investors, but we know Donald. We buy into Jobs, for what he created. We buy into Bill Gates. And when you're buying into FUBU, you're buying into my beliefs, my ethics. So are you the brand first? I always tell people they need to be able to put themselves and name themselves in 2 to 5 words as a brand. Whether it's Apple Think Different, Nike Just Do It, TBS Very Funny, TNT We Know Drama, White Castle's Just, What You Crave, or For Us By Us. Can you put who you are in 2 to 5 words and then put that on your brand? Branding is very important. It's also how you position your brand. Just the other day, you and I were watching the Oscars, and Chris Rock, somebody said to him, "What suit are you wearing?" And Chris Rock, as the comedian is, with the big smile, said, "I'm wearing a FUBU tuxedo."
I know.
Right? So the world hit me about that, and I said basically this. If I would have paid the $5 million that it cost to put De Niro or Tom Cruise or one of these guys in a FUBU suit, and he would have said it, it would have been believable. Really, those guys don't match my brand. So how can I get on one of the number one seen shows globally with a brand that some may think of funky, some may think of hip-hop, some may think of dead? I have to put it on a guy who can get away with that, and that would be Chris Rock, because it's said in a very funny way. Is it a joke or is it true? Either way, you heard about it that day on one of the number one shows globally watched. It's all about how do you position your brand as well. You don't necessarily have an ambassadors out there that would match your brand, so you have to be conscious of that.
And it can relate to anybody at any place in the continuum. You're very well connected, but you weren't in the beginning. And I think people think, well, Damon can do that, but I'm a little company, or I'm not a clothing company, or I'm a service company. But you can adapt and adopt that almost anywhere, anyway, can't you?
You absolutely can. You have to be like the music industry. The music industry's theory is this. If you can't be a hero in your own town, you can't be a hero anywhere else. So when you talk about Billy Joel being from Long Island, or Bruce Springsteen, the boss, being from New Jersey, what these guys do is they start off in the little smoke-filled pubs where there's only 3 people there and all of them don't have any teeth. But they keep performing, and that grows, and those local people become your local ambassador. I started off in Hollis, Queens, and every guy in Hollis, Queens started wearing it. But then when I started to go each borough, everybody in each borough, one guy in each borough would say, "I'm the FUBU guy in Brooklyn." When I started to share that across the country, there would be a guy in New Orleans. "I'm the FUBU guy in New Orleans." There would be somebody else. "I'm the FUBU guy in Chicago." It started to spread. If 15 years ago somebody said, I'm going to be the second most powerful company in the world. I'm going to take over computers, everything else. You know how I'm going to do that? I'm going to take MP3 players. I'm going to just sell kids music online. I'm going to start off with the Black Eyed Peas, and then they're going to want my iPod. Then they're going to want my iPad. Then the kids are going to want my Apple computer. Then I'm going to sell them Apple TV. If somebody would have told you that 15, 20 years, that you're going to start one of the most dominant, game-changing computer companies off of just selling kids what we've had for 100 years, music, I don't think anybody would have thought that would happen.
Agreed. Great insight. I want to talk about Shark Tank, and I want to talk about a couple of other lessons, but I realized, did you name your daughter Destiny because you were talking about Destiny? She's delightful, and I got the privilege of meeting her last time you were here.
No, we were just young, and me and her mother, we just named her because, that was we really loved that name.
It's a beautiful name.
And, we thought it was a beautiful name, and she ended up being even far more beautiful than the name.
I agree. All right, so tell us, because everyone sees you sitting on this panel, how did you get involved in ABC's Shark Tank, which I love, and we're going to talk about it from many vantage points, because I think it's not just one of the most entertaining, but one of the most instructional, educational, and powerful lessons in critical thinking, business thinking, value-based thinking, understanding the market. But you're minding your own business, sitting up in an Empire State Building,